Hello, and welcome to the Geekbank's very first video review. I'm so excited to finally be doing this because, wow, it has taken me way longer to do than I originally thought. But anyway, we're here now. The subject of today's review is none other than the Hot Toys upgraded suit Spider-Man from Spider-Man Far From Home. Personally, I'm excited to be getting him because he is the newest of the MCU suits, as well as donning a really cool red and black colour scheme that we've not had before in the MCU. So what we're going to do is quickly go over the packaging and then take a look at the figure and everything he comes with and everything he can do. And if you stick around, I'll be doing a few comparisons with other figures towards the end. Okay, so kicking straight off with the box. Obviously you've got your basic things dotted all over it, like your Hot Toys logo, your Movie Master series, your Spider-Man and your Marvel logos. They're just sort of placed all over it. But then you have the main feature, which is a very dynamic looking picture of Spider-Man himself in the new suit. But Hot Toys have done something a little bit different here. Normally what you get is you get the art sort of just printed across the front. It looks cool. That's maybe about all you get. But this time what we've got is they've used the outer slip of the box and they put a big transparent circle in it, which they've hidden as Mysterio's helmet. And that is what we were actually viewing the image through. I really like that they've done this because it adds a bit of depth to it. It's a bit different. It's not just a box, but we're sort of seeing it in a different way. We're seeing it through the villain's helmet, so it throws a bit of the context of the film in there for you. I've heard people saying it looks like he's being reflected in the helmet. Other people saying it looks like he's being shown in the helmet like a crystal ball. Either way, I really like this design. I like that Hot Toys have clearly put a bit of thought into it, and it's just a bit different. So you know what? I'm vibing with it. Then coming around to the side of the box, obviously the main feature is you have this big, bright, vibrant red, which goes around the majority of it, and you've got this sort of tech design black streak going down the middle. And in the center of that, you have the basic bits of writing. You know, you've got Spider-Man upgraded suit, just the sort of technicalities about the suit itself. Then coming around to the back of the box, you have a very similar design. The whole sort of theme of the box has been continued, but this time we've got a big black box. In the middle of it is the sort of Spider-Man logo, and over the top of it, you've got your sort of basic information, you've got your warnings, all the sort of official stuff that has to get put on the box somewhere, so I guess it's here. Yeah, feel free to read it if you want. I personally don't, but that's just me. And just to show you very quickly, this is what the box looks like if you actually take the outer slip off. So here is the full dynamic art of Spider-Man. This is what you're seeing underneath through the Mysterio visor. Again, really nice art. One thing to note here is they haven't used their figure for the art. Sometimes Hot Toys do, sometimes they don't. This here is not a photo of the figure itself. It's just a sort of computer-generated image. Then just take a very quick look at the sides. As you can see coming around, it's just a sort of, you've got your standard Spider-Man logo, and the legs have been stretched up and down the full length of the box. And finally, coming around to the back of the box, we have what is essentially, it's kind of like credits for these figures. So this is just a list of some of the many people who helped design and contribute and create this figure and bring it to us. So if you're interested in knowing who actually had a hand in it, these are the people here. I'm not even going to try and read their names because I know I'll get it wrong and I don't want to offend anybody. Okay, and here we have the figure outside of the box. First thing I'm going to say very quickly, I have used the dynamic stand with him. I know he's not in a dynamic stance and I'm not using it for its set purpose, but the reason why I'm posing it with him is because this is what he comes with, and so for that sake, this is what I'm going to show him with. I know a lot of people do swap out their bases or they do just take them out altogether, but seeing as this is what he comes with, this is what I'm going to be showing him with for the time being. First impression, wow. I am really liking the look of this guy. The black and the red together, there's something about this new color scheme that I'm really vibing with. And if anything, I think the black is making the red pop more than ever. As you can see, you've got things like coming around the back of him, you've got this big white spider, which is again different. It's almost reminiscent of the PS4 Spider-Man, but for obvious reasons, a black spider would not show up on this suit, so I can see why they've done that. And also, just from first impressions, it looks like the ratios of this body are pretty much spot on. I'm not seeing any issues here. Nothing looks too big, nothing looks too small. He looks pretty much in proportion as you would want him to be. Obviously, we'll take a closer look at that when we go into his articulation to see how the suit actually holds to the body. And we'll take a look at the joints when we take a closer look. But first impression is positive. Taking a closer look at the head, the very first thing I notice is this really nice sort of texture to the red sections actually. I don't know how to perfectly describe it, but it's almost got a very fine stippled effect all over it, and it really just adds an extra layer to this material, to this fabric. It covers all the red sections, including the head, which isn't sculpted but is covered in a fabric, unlike the PS4 Spider-Man suits, which the majority of them have. Also, the black webbed lines, they are actually indented in the material. They're not just lazily printed over the top. As the light turns, you can kind of see how it sort of cast a slight shadow. It's not the most important detail in the world. I don't think from a distance you'd notice it, but the fact that they've done it, it really shows a nice attention to detail here. Also, with the eyes, they are imprinted in the head. They do come off and they can detach for separate ones, which we'll go over later, but they're indented in the head, so they're not just like lazily sticking out of the head, but they're actually in it. They look like part of the mask, again contributing to the realism about it. One thing that is also catching my eye, as it spins here, you can see that they've got really, really natural human shapes to it. You've got a curve of an Adam's apple in the neck. You've got collarbones that you can see. They've actually added genuine shapes to him, which make it look like a person is wearing this suit and that this isn't just a figure that they've put material over. It makes him look so much more realistic, and I am loving it. So yeah, taking a look at the body now, the very first thing I'm noticing is this really, really lovely design and feature that we've got inside the black section. So for anyone that doesn't know this already, this black area, it's not just sort of like a flat black material. They've added these really fine, intricate, almost web-like lines to it. And they really contribute to the idea that this isn't just a spandex suit on a superhero, but there is a lot of tech going on. There's a lot of intricacy to this suit. It adds a lot of depth. And when the light catches it, you do get this really nice sheen across those lines. And it just frames the whole figure so much better. Obviously, under the arms, you can see seam lines. That's kind of an inevitability with these figures. At the end of the day, they have to be made somehow. And the seams aren't too bad, so I can kind of live with it. You've got your big white spider across the back. Again, you've got all the proportions of the body are pretty much spot on. And as you can see down at the bottom of the screen, there is just the slightest of seam lines where the wrists go into the hands. But again, personally for me, that's not the end of the world. Hands are interchangeable. It's much like the head sculpt. They come off, they're supposed to. And if you want that feature, you have to sometimes accept there's going to be a seam line. But overall, I am really, really liking this sort of red to black contrast. The black section sort of flat sheen to it, and the red section's more matted fabric look. They contrast perfectly. They make each other pop. I'm already falling in love with this as we speak. And obviously, just to go over the lower part of the body, obviously you can see all the fabric used here is the same as the other parts of the body. So you've got your black with the sheened intricacies on it. You've got your red with the stippled effect. It's all the same, so they've got that sort of continuity, no color changes, which, to be honest, you wouldn't expect it. One thing to point out, though, is there isn't actually a break in the material at the ankle line. Often what we get is there is a direct seam with a material end, then you go into a separate piece entirely for the foot, and they do this for the articulation. But this time around, they seem to have actually continued the material on into the foot. Now, you can see the joint under it, and it is a bit prominent from the front. But overall, if they've done this to both have realism and it hasn't affected the articulation, then hey, I'm all for it. Okay, and moving on to the articulation now. First thing is, there is a ball joint in the head which connects it, so you do get a decent 360 motion all the way around if you really want it, as well as a little bit of up and down sort of forwards and backwards motion. There is also a joint in the base of the neck hidden under this muscle area that allows for more forwards and backwards, so you can actually get him in a pretty decent sort of gliding, swinging pose if you want him really looking around. And what's nice is it doesn't seem to warp the shape of the neck. As you can see here, there is a slight seam line at the base of the head for where the head is detachable. It's to be expected. The head comes off, and to be fair, it's not that bad considering. The shoulder is on a ratchet joint, so it comes up a decent ways. It probably could go a bit further, but I didn't want to push it too far because the material can be a bit unforgiving sometimes. There is a bicep swivel up and the upper section of the arm, and there is a double joint in the elbow, which allows you to get sort of roughly past the 90-degree mark, I'd say just about, which is what I would expect as a minimum for these sort of joints. Just be careful because it can cause ruffling in the elbows. As you can see, it left minor creases just after a couple of seconds. Coming down to the wrist, it's your standard wrist peg joint, so you've got a 360 range of motion on the spin of it if you really want, as well as a slight pivot. Then into the body, you've got a section in the mid-torso and the waist that both articulate to allow for crunching forwards and backwards. These same pieces also allow for rotating side to side either way. So you can get some pretty dynamic stances in there with that. Just again, be careful, don't stretch the material. Exact same thing with the leg, comes forward, I'll say you've got about 45 degrees forward, maybe 20 degrees backwards. Each one will cause heavy ruffling in the legs here. These are probably the place where you're most likely to cause it, so just be careful of that. And again, try not to overstretch the material. I'm trying to be careful. In the knee section, again, another joint just like the elbow, lots of ruffling in the back, and instantly creases at the front, but the fact is it goes past the 90-degree mark, and that's what you want. Coming down to the ankle, you can see it gets a little bit of left and right action. You can get forwards and backwards. And you have a little bit of articulation actually in the toe. And I really like they've done that because the whole thing is seamless. That's a good bit of articulation for what's essentially a seamless joint. Now, one thing I will say about this figure is a lot of Spider-Man figures, well, they can be a bit unforgiving with things like articulation and stuff, because you put them in a dynamic pose for a couple of minutes and next thing you know, it's creased, it looks like it's in a baggy suit, or God forbid, it actually splits. I have seen that happen a couple of times with people that have been perhaps a bit over the top of the pose. All I'll say is, this guy's articulation is actually pretty good for a Spider-Man, so just be careful and accept that it is a 1/6 figure. It's not the real life person, it can't do what he can do. But that being said, you will get a lot of motion out of this, so I would say you've got nothing to worry about, and the articulation on this guy is actually really good, considering how tight-fitting the suit itself is. Okay, and moving on to the accessories. First impression is, wow, he comes with a lot. And to be honest, this makes me really happy. I love it when I open a box and I see that Hot Toys have actually given us loads and loads of things with our figure. Because not only do you feel like you're getting this sort of wide variety of, potential of ways you can pose your figure and how you can have them, but also you just get that feeling that you're getting your money's worth. And this is what I love. I know recently a lot of their figures haven't come with as many accessories, and I know a lot of people have griped saying, oh, you could have included this or you could have included that, and maybe they've sort of missed the ball on a few things. But here, just from first glance, I would say that they've really sort of nailed it. But at the same time, we'll go in on a closer look at things, and if as I go through I realise maybe they could have included some other things, I'll say. Okay, first thing to include, the instructions. Every single one of these figures comes with a set of instructions, and I personally would say they are definitely worth looking over. I know a lot of people don't, it's very common and it's very easy to sort of take it out of the box, not even look at them, put it bing bang bosh, all done. But I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody post online saying, oh, this damaged my figure, this marked my figure, or whatever. And a lot of the time, it could have been prevented by reading the instructions. So personally, I would say at least give them a look over. I know it's exciting when you first get that new figure you've been waiting for. Give them a look. There's useful information in here, because it is too heartbreaking to see how many collectors do unfortunately lose their figure because they push that joint just a little bit too far. So going into the base, first thing to mention, this is your standard style of base that we are getting with most Marvel figures at the moment, with the exception of perhaps a few others. But shape-wise, this is your standard design, with the variants being the top and front designs. Front design, you've got your standard Spider-Man upgraded suit. I'm glad they put Spider-Man and not Peter Parker, because I know they've done that with a couple of characters lately. And then on the left-hand side of that, you do have the Spider-Man logo itself. Taking a look at the top, you do also have this really, really nice sort of glossed spider logo going across the whole thing. And if you look, I don't know how well my camera's picking this up, but you can actually see the New York skyline in it. And that is a lovely detail. I'm really liking that. And then down at the bottom of it, you obviously have Spider-Man Far From Home, just in case you forgot what film he's from. At the back, you can see screwed in is the actual dynamic pose, sort of pole rod, whatever you want to call it. That is for attaching the clip, which I will show you now. With the clip, I would say these are very standard, these are generic. You get these with most Hot Toys figures that have a sort of dynamic style to them. All I'm going to say is be careful with these. They're great and they do hold the figure relatively well depending on its weight. I definitely don't think you'll have any issue with this figure, it'll hold it just fine. But they can grip quite tight, and sometimes the colouring in those foam pads on the inside actually can run into the figure. So maybe it's worth putting a little bit of protection between the two, just to protect it a little bit more, and be careful, because I've lost a figure to them in the past. It sucks. Then next, moving on to the hands that he comes with. First of all, he comes with a really nice wide selection. This is actually quite standard for most Spider-Man though. They typically come with quite a versatile range in terms of hands. Up in the corner we have two fisted hands. These are your basic go-tos. Then just underneath them we have two sort of slightly widened palms. These can be used for clinging to walls or just sort of like a flayed out dramatic hand look. Then just coming along next to them, you have your standard sort of web shooter hands. These actually have a feature that I'll go over later, but they are what we'd use for most of sort of the shots. Then you've got a sort of open, relaxed hand. This is actually used for holding the phone. Again, I will show this later. This hand is almost a clenched fist, but it does have a hole going through it. This is used for holding onto one of the webs. Again, I will go over that later because that is included with it. And then you have two sort of slightly open, relaxed hands. They're kind of that middle ground where you can be dynamic or relaxed. And then you got your peace sign because, hey, what's Spider-Man if not a friendly peace guy, am I right? One thing just to point out, although the actual figure itself is covered predominantly with a fabric, the hands themselves are not. They are actually sculpted. That being said though, they have been recreated very well to blend almost perfectly, and so with the red areas you do still have that really nice stipple effect. You do still have the intricate lines in the black areas. Personally, they look like they blend pretty well, and I'll show a couple more with the body later on when I do a few more dynamic poses. Okay, moving on to these. Now, these are actually really, really interesting because this is a new method Hot Toys are using to actually attach the various web effects to the hand. Before, you'd get like this small sort of insert in the wrist that stayed there, and that would be it. But this time what we actually have is the palm section of the web shooter hands that swap out. They plug in and plug out, so you can have him shooting the web or you have him without the web slot whatsoever. This is a really interesting design. As you can see, you do have the translucent hole on there. They do have sort of plugs underneath, and you do still have the black lines going across them. But what I'll do is I'll show you very quickly how they actually swap in and out with the hands, just so you've got a bit of a better idea. Okay, so here's the two, obviously, web shooter hands that we've already had a look at, but there's a little closer look. And if you look here, on the underside, there is actually a seam, and you can just about see where this part comes off. And honestly, just first look, Hot Toys have really disguised this, because when I first looked at these pieces, I did not realize they came off. It's a bit tricky. You do have to get your nail under there to sort of really pry it off. All I can say is with this, take your time, be careful. You don't want to be chipping the paint off. It will come. You've just got to sort of slowly edge it out, work it out, because it's not in there by a clip. It's only in there by a few little pegs that pushed it in. But with Hot Toys, these things can be very delicate and you don't want to break them. So just with a little bit of patience, you can eventually work it out of the hole. There you go. Then you can see it's literally just 3 plug holes, and then you can swap it out with the alternative piece, which I'll bring in now. And that should, if I know what I'm doing, just press into the slot. Yeah, that looks lined up. Yeah, so there you go. That's it, pressed in. I could probably press it in a little bit more, but I don't want to commit to this just yet because it can be a bit tricky to get out. But you get the general idea of how they slide it out. Honestly, that's a really good design idea, and I really like that they've done it. It's different compared to other Hot Toys sort of Spider-Man figures, but I like the engineering behind this, and I like that Hot Toys are actually putting a little bit of thought into it, so who knows, maybe this could become a more common thing. So, to take a look at the eyes now, or what you can call the lenses if you want, essentially these are the interchangeable eyes that go onto the head, obviously. And we've got 5 pairs. I really like that Hot Toys have included so many because a lot of people do like their Spider-Man to have a different look. And at the end of the day, it's not a head sculpt. With these things, you can just swap out the eyes, and what you essentially get is a character with a different expression. And I think that's a great addition. One that I really want to talk about is very unique, is the pair up at the top where the eyes are completely shut. Now, a lot of people might be thinking, why would you want this? But in the film, if you remember, at the very end, Spider-Man closes his eyes when he takes on the Stark drones, and he sort of reuses his Peter Tingle, or aka the Spider Sense. Really like that they've included that, because that's actually a really good scene of the film, and now people can recreate it. Along with all the others, you've essentially got them going from wider to narrower. These are just based on your personal preference, but I think it's good that they give this option to the collectors because, it's a display feature. Some people might not like the wider eye look, some people might like the narrower look, and if you're only going to buy one Spider-Man, it does give you that little bit of extra choice on how you want your one. If you want many, you can buy many and you can still choose. It's great. But if you look here, as you turn it around the back, there is a little magnet here, and this is actually what's used to connect it to the head, which I will show you now. Okay, so here you have Spider-Man without eyes. Oh, scary, I know, but don't panic. Essentially what you've got inside each of these little divots here is the magnet that receives to the magnet on the inside of the lens. When you put the magnet close enough, it will literally hold it in place. It will not snatch out of your hand. They're not so powerful that they won't come off, but the main thing is it holds it in place securely, and because of the dents in the actual head sculpt, they fit into the head rather than sort of on top of it. What you actually have at the very back of the eye section is there is a dent under it where if you press down, it will raise up the front of the eye just enough for you to be able to get your fingernail under it and pry it off. Otherwise, what you find you're doing is you will be sort of digging around at the edges of it, and you can risk scuffing up the head sculpt, which obviously isn't what you want, so I would say use this method. Up next, we have the various webs that he comes with. So these are things that you would slot into the actual web shooters that we talked about just a moment ago, and you can use them to create sort of the look of him shooting webs, or maybe him swinging, or doing various things, and again, they just widen the overall prospect of him. The first ones we have, there are 2 of these, so I'll just show you one for now, is a slightly shorter web. I guess it's supposed to look more like sort of just a web shot in itself. It's chunkier at the end, so again, it looks like he's just firing it off as a single shot. Mine actually seems to have a bit of a kink in it. Not entirely sure why, but who knows? Maybe with a bit of heat, I can probably straighten that out. It's not the end of the world, to be honest. I'm sure I can fix that. You can see, and there's a really nice sort of translucent-y look. It's not completely see-through, it's not completely opaque. You can kind of see through it a little bit, and it's got a really nice sort of swirl pattern on it, just to sort of create the appearance of webs themselves. Then you've got the longer shot. So this one can be used for a sort of variety of things if you want to maybe pose him swinging from something. So you can have this going all the way up to the top of your display case. You can actually attach this to another piece that we'll look at in a second, which is more of like a splayed out landed shot. But again, there's two of those. They've got the same sort of translucent see-through effect with the spirals going up the full length of them. Now this piece is actually a bit different because what this one has is rather than a slot for going into his wrist where the web shooter is, this one actually has almost like a handle that goes to one of the hands, and there is a hand specially designed for holding this, and this is very much if you want to create the appearance of him swinging. So what I'll do now is I'll very quickly go grab that hand, and then I'll show you what it looks like with the web in the hand. Okay, and here it is in the hand that is designed for. Obviously, this is the one earlier that I talked about where it's like a clenched fist, but there is a hole through it. This is what it's for. Basically, the whole point of this one is you can have it looking like he is swinging from his web. And I really like, again, the inclusion because, once again, it just adds another thing. The detail in here is really nice, and it fits the hand really naturally, actually, so I might pose him with that, to be honest. Another type of web it comes with is this sort of lasso-like web. Now, I'm sorry if this isn't showing up very well on the camera. Unfortunately, it doesn't stand out against the white background, but I'm trying to make it as visible as possible. Essentially, what this one is for is going with the same hand that I just showed you for the other web. It loops in, and it just looks like he's got the web wrapped around his hand a couple of times, and it's an alternative look. This one's probably my personal favorite. I don't quite know why. I just think it looks really dynamic. You can angle it at different ways from the hand, and it still looks cool. But what I'll do is I'll show you this one with the hand just very quickly. And so here you can see it in that same hand we just looked at, just so you can sort of get an idea of how it looks. Personally, this is probably my favorite look, and I think this may be what I include when I actually come to posing my Spider-Man or giving him his final look. Just something about the way it holds in hand. It looks natural, it looks very realistic to me, and I'm really liking this. So this is probably my personal favorite web, but I'm interested to see what your favorites are too, so feel free to comment on that one. And here we have the final web effect. This is actually one that plugs into that long web shot that I showed you earlier. This plugs onto the end of it, so you can technically display him, I guess. You could have him upside down hanging from the top of your display case with this. You could have him shooting a web and having it landing on like maybe a villain that you've got. There's a few options with this. I personally don't know of many people that have used this in really dynamic shots, but perhaps it just takes a really creative mind. Definitely one more creative than me. I am sorry again, I don't think this one is standing out very well against the background, but there's your general idea of it. Okay, so moving on to what's probably my favourite accessory, the Mysterio Drone. First thing I'm going to mention, this is nowhere near as big as the version that we got with the homemade suit. Now, I don't know if perhaps there was a reason why Hot Toys couldn't give us a full-sized one again, maybe it was a cost thing, or maybe they just didn't really want to go through that effort again, considering that they were re-releasing it independently as a separate item. But either way, I am glad that we got this smaller version. As you look at it, the detail on it, despite the size, they haven't skipped any measures. The detail is still bang on. You can see the guns, there's weathering around it. You've got these little like green lights at the front. Honestly, I am still blown away by the detail. Even if this was maybe a sort of a side accessory, I'm really happy that they've gone to these lengths with it. I personally don't think any corners have been cut. Maybe just the sizing was an issue, but I can see why they might have done that. Am I happy about it? Maybe not entirely, but at the end of the day, if they're going to take it away, I appreciate that they felt the need to give us a small version. As you can see, you've got the Gatling Guns at the bottom here, and that hole is actually where the plug stand goes into it. Very easy, just push it in like that, and it will hold. It's not in any way heavy, so you don't need to worry about balancing. It just holds very simply on that. And the bottom of this stand plugs onto the main display stand from the main figure's base. Again, the detail on that, brilliant. Loving it, and I am definitely going to be displaying mine, I think, with this next to him. Might even put it with the drone from my homemade suit, who knows. Next up, we have Spider-Man's web wings. Now, these are a feature that he did actually have in the Spider-Man Homecoming film, but these are just the slightly larger, upgraded version. And I like that we've got them again because, to be honest, I thought they were really cool in the first film. With these, you can't really tell, especially with the white background, doesn't show off very well, but they are actually a sort of translucent. Light does go through them a little bit, and there is actually this really fine webbed detail going through them. It's much like the black on the suit. It's very fine, it's a very small feature, but it just adds an extra layer, especially when the light hits it and you can see those streaks running through it. It looks really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly just show you how they do attach onto the suit itself. You can see these little metal patches on the corners of them. Those are actually magnets. It doesn't clip in. It doesn't damage the suit in any way. They've clearly put magnets under the suit and this fixes to them. I will say the magnets aren't amazingly strong, so you do have to make sure that it is in the right position. Otherwise, it will just fall out from under his arm. But you can see I've not got it perfectly, and still it seems to be holding the shape relatively well. These are just to play around with to get them right. It's not easy because, like I said, the magnets aren't strong, but they're strong enough to hold, and that's the main thing you need. But all in all, I think they actually look kind of great on him. But what I'll do is I'll put him in a pose later to show you with all of them in and see how he looks with it like that. Okay, so going on to one of his accessories that I was probably least expecting to get, but I am very, very happy we got, is the mobile phone. Now, we see this phone actually at the end of the film when he is texting and swinging, which Mary Jane is telling him not to do. This is also when he's going to go pick her up. I don't really know. I think a lot of the Spider-Man figures these days are coming with the mobiles more and more, and to be honest, I can vibe with it. It makes sense. He's a teenager. He's got a phone. I love the fact that they've included, there's a little crack at the bottom of the screen. You know, the detailing they've gone to on this and the fact that they included it at all, I can really get behind that. I feel like it means they really understand Spider-Man and poses that the collectors would want to put him in. Because, yeah, you can picture him sat on a rooftop ledge just texting or something. And the fact that the phone has that much detail on it, when you really stop and look at the screen, they've got the little charging symbols, they've got the little search, the logos, and all of it. They haven't skipped a beat on this one, and yet it's such a small accessory, so it does show an element of caring on that one. I'm trying to get you a better look at it, but I don't know how well my camera's going to show it. But just trust me, in person, I don't think cameras can really do this justice. This accessory is really nice with a lot of detail despite its size. Then just to show you, this is the hand that I was talking about earlier. This hand is designed primarily for holding the phone. So you can have him on his phone in this hand, swinging with his other hand. I don't know, however you might want to do it, but it fits really nicely. It fits really snug and it just works quite nicely. So there you go. Okay, so moving on to the accessory that I think most people have been waiting for is the head sculpt. And honestly, I can see why people have been waiting for this because, wow, I am honestly blown away by the detail on this thing. The new hair especially, I really like how they've got it almost like cascading down his forehead just there. And when you look at this thing, it is Tom Holland without a doubt. You can see it, the designs, you know, the shape of his face and everything. They haven't got it out of proportion. And also, the head is in proportion to the body, which is important. I've seen figures before where it's been too big or too small, but here, it is just spot on. I know the neck seam isn't perfect. Realistically, it should be sort of half of his neck coming out of the clothesline, but unfortunately that couldn't happen just because of the sort of mechanics of the figure. But that being said, it still looks great. You've got the natural look to the hair, the skin tones are right, he's got that sort of relaxed face. I know a lot of the time Hot Toys don't put emotions into their figures' faces, and I think this is one of the times when they kind of get away with it, especially because this head sculpt is designed to have the Edith glasses on, which I will show you now. So yeah, here are the glasses that I was just saying about. First thing to note, the silver section on these, the frame, it's actually metal, which really surprises me. I was expecting these to be a sort of plastic all over just because of how small and delicate the accessory is, but Hot Toys have actually gone ahead and used metal parts, which I love. The lenses, again, they look really nice. They're a sort of translucent blue, which you can just kind of see through. They don't block off the sight through them, so you will be able to see your head sculpt's eyes through them. But what I'll do is I'll actually show you them on the head sculpt now to give you a better idea of that. Okay, so here they are on the head sculpt. First thing I'm going to say is I am loving this look. They look so good on the head sculpt. They fit, the proportions, they are on perfectly. But be careful when putting them on, because I did notice it is quite a tight fit. I don't think this is a bad thing, because obviously it means they're not going to just randomly fall off. You can pose them in all sort of crazy ways, but you do have to bend them a little bit to get them on, so just be careful of that. But overall, I think they fit spot on and they look great. Comparison time. Okay, so first comparison we're going to do is Spider-Man with his mentor, Tony Stark. Obviously, the first thing you probably notice is that Tony is considerably taller in his Iron Man suit, but obviously that is the actual heights they are in comparison to each other in the MCU. So again, I think the heights are pretty much spot on. I don't think Tom Holland is supposed to be any taller than that. Just be aware if you want to display these two next to each other, I have used a custom Tony Stark head. I don't think it affects the height too much, but just know this isn't the actual one it comes with, so the height could vary a little bit on that. But in terms of ratio, proportions, Stark supposedly looking like the father figure, these two actually look really nice together. And I think the different shades of red, they sort of complement each other. So yeah, there's that one. Now, for the big comparison, which is obviously the Far From Home upgraded suit with the Homecoming suit. This is the Stark Tech suit that he wore in Spider-Man Homecoming. Firstly, I'm noticing that the proportions of the bodies are pretty much the same. They haven't changed anything too much there, although I'm sure there is a lot more going on in the newer suit, because obviously you've got the addition of those things like the collarbones and everything, with a little bit more muscle definition going on under the suit. I can't tell if my eyes are playing tricks on me here, but I think the head sculpt, like the masked head sculpt on the new figure, may actually be a smidge bigger. Now that could just be because I've got different lenses on it here, but I don't know. Comment down below, tell me what you think, because I really can't tell for the life of it. Obviously the main difference here though is the blue and the black. I don't know, I'm really struggling to pick a favourite here, because personally, I've always been a fan of Spider-Man's, classic red and blue, and I liked that they threw in a bit of black on the original suit, but they didn't overpower it. And then obviously the new suit, they completely took out the blue, gave us all that black, and part of me really thinks I'm leaning towards this new suit. There's something about the black, it makes him look more mature. He's very serious, he looks much more like he's gonna kick ass. He doesn't look so friendly, if I'm completely honest. He doesn't look like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He looks a bit more aggressive, a bit more, mature. And although obviously the newer figure does have a lot of accessories and it's got probably a bit newer tech in the actual manufacturing of the figure, in terms of overall look, don't hate me for saying this, I think I might actually be leaning towards this new look. And I also do have a few Spider-Man with the red and blue, so it could just be the fact that this is just a fresh color scheme for me. But honestly, I'm loving the red and black in comparison. Then just to give you a very quick look at how he looks with the Night Monkey stealth suit that obviously we see in the same film. Obviously, same film, they've come out at pretty much the same time, so the technologies behind these two are pretty similar. So in quality, there's not really much of a difference, but this is just to give you a look of how they look next to each other. Again, I like it. I like the sort of evolution thing here. I think these two actually look really great together, especially if you're going to have a Far From Home display. These two are actually really nice contrasts to have next to each other. You've got the complete black, you've got the red and black. I think along with the others as well, it might show a nice transformation there. So there's your idea of that. And then final comparison, I've actually decided to put him next to the PS4 Advanced Suit Spider-Man. Just to give you an idea, so if you're working on maybe like a Spider-Verse display, this is how he actually looks in proportion to sort of the alternative reality Spider-Man. One thing is, the PS4 Spider-Man, he is a lot beefier, he is a lot bulkier. The material is very different, so there's a lot less fabric, there's more rubbery fabrics going on with him. And his whole head sculpt, this is what I was talking about earlier, his whole head is actually sculpted, there's no fabric on there. The PS4 Spider-Man, he actually is a lot taller as well. I just seem to have accidentally posed him with his legs stood a bit further apart, so it doesn't show off very well. But you can sort of see the difference in their shoulder height there, and if I were to stand him up straight, he does come up a bit taller. But again, if you're working on a Spider-Verse display, this may be how you want to have it, or maybe with a few of the others from the PS4 game. So that just gives you an idea there. And I'm nothing if not a nice guy, so here you go, just to give you a real sort of group Spider-Man shot of a few of my Spider-Man. This is them all together, so if you're looking for the group, this is how the new upgraded suit would blend into a crowd. Again, I think he stands out really nicely. Like I said, the colour schemes, if you dot them around, you've got the blacks, you've got the reds. They're really nice. Now that I'm seeing them in as a group though, I think he's actually a different shade of red to what we had before. I didn't notice it up until now, but I think we've got a new shade. Again, that's not in any way a problem. As I've said already 1,000 times in the video, I think it looks great. But yeah, so that's just a little idea of how he might look against his Spidey brothers. Okay, so just before I move on to my conclusion, which I promise you is coming, I just want to show you the alternative head sculpt. I know quite a few collectors out there do actually have this one. So if you haven't got this figure yet and you're wondering how the head sculpt would look on it, here you go. One thing I'm noticing, and I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, is the colours on the head sculpt's mask aren't actually the same as this body. I know obviously this head sculpt was originally sort of made for the Homecoming suit, but the red, it is a slightly different shade. Realistically, it's not the end of the world. Maybe from a distance with the right lighting, you could get them to look the same. For me, it's just enough to bother me and make me think I'm probably not going to put it on this figure. Plus, although the Tom Holland sculpt here is great, the one this figure has come with is by far the best one we've got. And I don't think I can justify, taking a phenomenal head sculpt and replacing it with one that's not quite as good in my opinion. But that doesn't soften the fact that this one does still look very cool on the figure. So if you want to go about that way and use your alternative head sculpt, feel free. Just be aware this isn't an officially licensed one. This isn't Hot Toys. This doesn't actually come with it. So, just before I get my conclusion, one thing I do want to point out is I am not the world's richest collector. I can't afford to buy every single Hot Toys put in front of me and create my own museum. I would absolutely love it if I could, but at the moment, that's not an option, so I've got to be fair but selective with what I add to the collection and what stays in the collection based on, is it any good? I can't just add them frivolously. That being said, with this guy, that is in no way a problem, because this is a truly, truly great Spider-Man figure. And if you are looking to add him to your collection, I would say don't hesitate, because this is an amazing addition. Be it just for a one-off, maybe you really like this look, or to add to a set, he looks amazing in both situations. In terms of things maybe I think they could have added, I really think they covered most of the bases. Looking back though, the only maybe accessories I would have otherwise included are the broken off piece of the Mysterio drone that he holds on the London Bridge, as well as the actual sign from the London Tower Bridge itself. I think a lot of collectors agreed they would have wanted that piece and they would have used it for posing. But overall, considering how many things we actually got, I'm not in any way griping, because you definitely feel like you're getting your money's worth here. And if that doesn't make you happy, I don't know what will. As for the figure itself, I am all over this one. Obviously, if I haven't said enough throughout the video, yeah, it's great. I've sung its praises from start to finish, let's be fair. But can you really blame me? The detail in the suit is phenomenal. You can really, really see how Hot Toys have put a lot of their sort of modern development and tech into creating the suit with the intricate print all over it. And what I'm loving as well is the suit doesn't feel too delicate. It doesn't feel like it's really, really vulnerable to creasing if you put it in a crazy pose. Like most Spider-Man figures, yes, there is that risk. If you hold it in a mad pose for too long, it will stretch, it will get a bit saggy. But that is going to happen with any one of the Spider-Men that we have at the minute. And so I don't think that can really be expected, and I'm not going to hold it against this figure. But, you know, that being said, the material, it is very sturdy still, and I do think it will hold up against a lot of things. So that's a win right there. Not to mention some absolutely gorgeous contouring in the body that really adds a sort of human aspect to it. It doesn't look like a figure with a suit over the top of it anymore. It looks like a person. And also what I think is the best Tom Holland head sculpt that we have got so far. So this guy really has a lot to offer. Now, me telling you, how great the figure is brilliant. But if I don't tell you where you can get it from, it's a little bit useless. I've actually been collecting for a good few years now, and I have had dealings with several distributors, so I'm aware there are good ones, there are bad ones, but in my experience, even the good ones have their drawbacks somewhere. That being said, I very recently discovered a distributor called INLC Toys. In my opinion, they might actually be the first distributor that solves all of the problems. Normally you go somewhere, you get really good prices, really good shipping and all that, but you've got to wait months for it. Or it's the other way around, where you can get it really quickly, they'll get it so fast to you, but oh, look at that, you're paying through the nose. INLC Toys, however, they don't have that problem. You can get first batch or second batch. Either price is better than you will get for those batches anywhere else. The shipping is worldwide. It doesn't matter where you are. And the shipping is so fast. This guy got to me so quickly. They are, like I said, they are just starting out, but as far as I can see, they are setting an example right now, and I really hope other companies start to look to them for that. Personally, they're where I'm going to be taking all of my orders in the future, and I can't recommend them enough. So take a little look at them. I will put their link in the bio and description below. So yeah, go and have a look at that. I can't recommend it enough, but yeah, I won't go on too hard about that. But yeah, I can't recommend this guy enough. But that being said, I really would love to hear what you guys think about him. So feel free, comment down below, tell me what you think. Do you really like this new color scheme? Will you be adding him to your collection? If you want to chat as well, feel free to directly message me on the Geekbank Instagram page. I will link it down below. It's just where I put slightly more artistic pictures of everything in my collection, and I do upload daily, so feel free to check that out. You might enjoy it. And obviously, if you liked this video, likes and subscribes are much appreciated, especially as these videos are going to become much more frequent now as I gradually work my way through the collection. But until then, I will catch you all later. Thank you for tuning in. Peace out, geeks.